Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. And we're going to talk about the Dungeon Master bullet point problem, host. Okay? Apologies. If you don't know what the Dungeon Master bullet point problem is, you don't have any context for this video. And you have some homework to do. It's in the doobly-doo below. I apologize that you have to go watch another video and enjoy this video, but it's just to stop me from repeating myself. Thank you for your patience. All right, let's talk about being a host, right? So first of all, just so you're aware, being a host, hosting is a discipline. Being a host is a role, okay? And hosting is definitely a discipline that people spend their lives mastering. So, you know, Martha Stewart has literally spent 40 years teaching, becoming the most epic host on the planet, and teaching others how to be amazing hosts, right? And she's dedicated her life to it, and she's phenomenally good at it, right? So for her, it's a life goal, right? Like, and she continues to grow in just that one discipline, right? Just shocking, like, and has shocking amounts of knowledge about it. For us, it's a bullet point. Like, we have to master this thing that others are spending a lifetime mastering. For us, it's just one of 10 things we need to master, because Dungeon Master is the most intellectually, emotionally, socially stretching call you will ever give to someone. When you say, I want you to be a Dungeon Master, or you call them to be a Dungeon Master, or you invite them to be a Dungeon Master, you are in many ways warping the shape of their life, okay? And the reason, and it's a good thing, right? It's like when a bodybuilder like grows muscle, sometimes it gets to the point where it warps their body. It you know, fundamentally changes it, right? And it puts them into a different level of strength and ability and capability, right? Same thing with dungeon mastering, except it's emotional, social, and intellectual, right? So basically you have this situation where you're now calling people to master hosting. Now, I'm going to jump, there's so much that can be talked about on this topic, but I'm going to jump to the hardest one. I'm going to put it flat out, right? I just cannot warn you. Like, you must be incredibly, I think we have to be more and more hesitant to invite people to Dungeon Master or ask people to Dungeon Master, because it's just such a massive calling, and this one's really a very harsh reality. Here we go. What do you really need to do to master hosting as a Dungeon Master? You need a house. Like, what? Like, you're like, wait, why do I need a house? Well, first of all, I want you to be very aware of this. You compete for your players. You compete for every player at your table. If you don't understand that, you're going to lose them, okay? It's just a fact, okay? You compete with all the amazing books, the amazing video games, the amazing shows, the amazing movies. Well, movies are actually, you don't really compete with movies anymore. Most movies suck now because movies are shrinking from big screen size to small screen size. You don't really have to worry about movies. You can easily defeat modern movies today. Marvel Eternals is rotten. Like, that's where we're at. Like, it's just, you know, it's a thing. All right. But you do compete with television. Television getting amazingly good, right? And, you know, and you also compete with, like, pets. Like, pets are becoming way more important in life, right? So every player has something better to do if you're not on point and doing everything you can to make an amazing game, right? And the reality is keeping your players' attention, keeping them engaged with the game is incredibly difficult and becomes more difficult every single day, as Matthew Mercer, Sly Flourish, recently posited that he thinks the new Campaign 3 Critical Role set cost $500,000, right? Matthew Mercer is like, when he says, the sun changes as you get up in the morning, like the windows in the set where his players are playing changes, right? Mixture of IRL and fantasy. It's incredible. And you are competing with him. You compete directly with Matthew Mercer. He is setting the bar for what is expected of you as a Dungeon Master. And guess what? His latest set, Sly Flourish, his estimation was that it cost $500,000, right? So you need a house. Like, and I will say right now, I will tell you right now, I think I am beating some other Dungeon Masters out, because when my players come, I have a house that has multiple rooms we can play in, and we can shift and play in rooms that are more or less comfortable based on if we have 5 or 6 players, we have one specific room. If we have 3 or 4 players, we have another room that's a little more, close in, and we can see the minis better, right? And I haven't even used my basement, which is a third place where I could run a second game on Sundays. I actually proposed that to my players. I was like, I think we should have 2 games running on our open night. They're like, no, let's keep it where it is at, right? And unfortunately, I have a group that really likes what we have, and they don't want to blow it by putting more people in, right? I kind of get that, right? It's a whole thing. But having a house tremendously helps you game master, right? And I'm hearing you. I'll give you your comment before you make it below, right? You're like, well, Scott, what about FLGSs and libraries? You can absolutely play there, and it's going to be worse than if you're playing in a house, right? FLGS, some knucklehead's going to come in and start telling, bring their dog in, right? Like, yeah, I was at an MTG game the other day, and some dude brought their dog in, like, and guess what, right? Their dog was wonderfully delightful, right? But it interrupted 3 games while people literally got up, from the games they were playing to pet this dog, right? And then 6 feet over, you're going to have some dudes or some ladies playing Warhammer 40K. I think that happens every now and then. And yeah, that's interesting. So basically, you have, the only reason why I'm questioning why women would be playing Warhammer 40K is I don't see it a lot, and I think the reason why is only 1 chapter in the entire game actually has female warriors. Like, I don't understand how Warhammer's getting away with the outrageous non-representation for gender and preferences that it gets away with, while 5e is just being like, is spitted and is being turned over a flame to watch its juices fall into the fire. I definitely don't understand that, right? So basically, you really need a house, right? Like, because if you are in these FLGSs or if you're in a library space, right, there's just a lot of interruptions, right? And library spaces also are very good and generally quiet, but there's a long line and you can't always get them, and they're generally, libraries are closed at night, right? So it really limits your hours. But if you have a dedicated house where you can bring in, you can have 1, 2, or 3 rooms dedicated to a Dungeons and Dragons game, you're going to be way high on the list compared to other dungeon masters, right? And lots of people like to say, oh, this stuff doesn't matter. But it does. It does, right? Now, here's the kicker, right? I feel so bad for people, because the reality is I bought my house like 18 years ago, okay? And, and I'm probably in like the last third of, paying it off, but, I'm very fortunate. I got a very nice low, I actually did a lot of things to make sure I had a very nice low mortgage. And, and we're right on track to pay that thing off, and, and it'll be ours. But the reality is today, oh my gosh, you want a house in America, you are SOL, right? Surely out of luck. Like, it is going to be harder by the day. Huge private equity firms are just sweeping up every piece of land they can get in the U.S., and it is becoming shockingly difficult to own a home in America, right? So, and that's the other thing I love is, like, people are, it's a game, right? How come your game is immediately impacted by major cultural trends, right? Like, don't stop thinking. It's a life path. It's not a game. All right, so it's really important, this hosting aspect. So we talked about the house thing. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Beyond that, you have to make sure everybody has pencils. At my home, the rule is I actually don't supply food just because everybody has different diets. But I'm like, hey, we got bottled water, we have cans of soda, we have bottled green teas, with different infusions, right? Anything in the fridge that is sealed, any drinks in the fridge that is sealed. And I even supply Chabanis and anything sealed. That way everybody is eating their own container and nobody's sharing anything, right? And I can, provide that as a host, right? And one of the things that's super, and it is hard being a host, incredibly difficult, right? Martha Stewart level difficult, right? So one of the things I just added was pencils. I use pens right now, and people are like, do you have a pencil? And I'm like, no, I use pens. Here's a pen. And they're like, a big frown. And they're like, okay, here's a mechanical pencil, right? So, and just incredibly, here's the bathroom over here. New player comes. Hey, I'm going to introduce you to everybody. I'm going to make you welcome in this space and welcome in my home, right? And it's incredible. Like, and so the idea, like, and just, I am so shocked that people look at Dungeon Master and say ridiculously foolish things like, oh, it's easy. Yeah, you're going to do great. No, you're going to suck, and you're going to be ground over glass you're going to be dragged over glass for 3 years. You're going to suck at being a Dungeon Master your first 3 years. There will be pain. There will be pain, right? You're going to be just dragged over metaphorical glass for 3 years, and there will be metaphorical blood on the ground. It is not easy. And to give people this idea that the first 3 years ain't going to be pain to the pain to the pain is ludicrous. It is just ludicrous. Dungeon Master, just those words contain minimum 10 distinct disciplines that must be mastered. Be very careful when you call someone to be a Dungeon Master. It will warp their life emotionally, socially, intellectually, right? And sometimes it's hard. It's just really hard, right? And that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think it takes to be a great host to be a great host as a Dungeon Master? Yes. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.